Navy SEAL asks the old man's call sign at a bar. The Reaper turned the whole bar dead silent. Narrator. Sometimes a name carries more weight than a weapon, and in that moment, even the bravest warriors pause. Camera pans over patrons laughing, clinking glasses, unaware of what's about to happen. Narrator. Tonight, a young Navy SEAL, far from his team, walks into a bar. He doesn't know the history sitting quietly in the corner, but when he asks one simple question, the room stops. Everything stops, and all it takes is 3 words: the Reaper. Channel intro. This is United War. Hit subscribe and let's uncover a story that proves some legends are more than just stories. Scene 1. The bar, 45 seconds to 2 minutes 30 seconds. Camera, focus on the SEAL, mid-30s, in casual clothes, sitting at the bar, scanning the room. Narrator. The bar was alive with laughter, the sound of a jukebox playing an old classic. Our SEAL, known for his discipline and calm under pressure, was out of uniform, blending in. He had come for a quiet drink, hoping to shed the weight of countless missions for just a few hours. But peace, as he would soon learn, is never guaranteed. Camera shifts to the old man at the far end, a weathered veteran, alone with a glass of whiskey. Narrator. In the corner sat a man who seemed ordinary, old, quiet, almost invisible to everyone else, but beneath the gray hair and the quiet demeanor, a storm of experience and history lingered, the kind of history that whispers in shadows and silences entire rooms. Narrator. Our SEAL, curious and respectful, leaned over the bar and asked the bartender, "Who's that old guy in the corner?" The bartender's eyes flickered with something between respect and fear. "That," he said slowly, "that's the Reaper." Cue suspenseful music. Scene 2. Tension builds. 2 minutes 30 seconds to 4 minutes 30 seconds. Narrator. The SEAL chuckled nervously, thinking it a nickname, a story for show. He didn't know the weight behind it. "The Reaper?" he asked, voice low, trying to keep the tone light. The bartender shook his head. The old man lifted his gaze, steady, piercing, unwavering. That's when the room began to change. Camera pans. Patrons sense the shift. Laughter dies down. Someone drops a glass in shock. Narrator. Eyes turned subtly, conversations hushed. Nobody spoke, but everyone felt it. An invisible presence had taken over the room. The Reaper didn't need to say a word. His reputation preceded him, etched in history, forged in combat, feared and respected by those who understood what survival truly demanded. Our SEAL felt the weight of 1,000 untold missions, 1,000 ghosts standing behind those quiet eyes. For a moment, the young warrior wondered if he had stumbled into a tale too dangerous for ordinary men. Camera zooms on the SEAL, fidgeting slightly, sensing the gravity of the moment. Scene 3. The question. 4 minutes 30 seconds to 6 minutes 30 seconds. Narrator. Gathering courage, the SEAL finally leaned closer, his voice steady, masking his curiosity and respect. "Sir, may I ask your call sign?" he said, nodding politely. The old man's hand paused mid-sip, the glass reflecting the neon lights. He set it down slowly, deliberately. Narrator. The bar fell silent, not a whisper, not a shuffle. Even the jukebox seemed to fade into nothingness. The Reaper's eyes met the SEAL's, and in that instant, the young Navy SEAL understood. Some legends are alive, and some names are spoken only once. The old man's voice, low and commanding, breaks the silence. "They call me the Reaper." Cue dramatic pause. Camera pans the room, showing stunned faces, the atmosphere thick with tension. Narrator. In that moment, the young Navy SEAL realized he wasn't just speaking to an old man. He was standing in the presence of a living legend, a man whose very name could turn an entire bar dead silent. Scene 4, Cliffhanger ending, 6 minutes 30 seconds to 7 minutes. Narrator. The room waited, breathless. What would happen next? Would the young seal speak, or would he simply nod, understanding that some stories are too big for words? One thing was certain: tonight, the legend of the Reaper would touch yet another life, and nothing would ever be the same. Screen fades to black with suspenseful music. Text appears. Next, you'll see what happens when the seal finally confronts the man behind the name.
The Reaper's words hung in the air like smoke. 3 simple words that carried decades of history, blood, and honor. The young seal felt a chill, not fear, but respect. In that instant, he realized that what happens in this room tonight would become a story he could never tell, at least not fully. The seal took a deep breath, steadying himself. He had faced firefights, ambushes, and situations that would have terrified anyone else, but the quiet authority of the Reaper was different. It didn't rely on weapons or tactics. It relied on reputation, on experience that could be measured only in survival and honor. For a moment, the seal wondered how many men had fallen silent at that gaze, how many stories of valor and fear were embedded in the corners of that quiet, aged face. The weight of history pressed down on him, heavier than any mission briefing or combat scenario he had ever faced. Camera shifts to the bartender, nervously polishing a glass, whispering under his breath to a colleague, He's the real deal. Nobody messes with the Reaper." And now the young seal was about to learn exactly why. Curiosity overcame caution. The seal slid off his stool and approached the Reaper's table. Every step was measured, respectful. He was entering a battlefield of history, a minefield of unspoken rules and earned respect. Camera. Seal stops a few feet from the table, lowers his voice. "Sir, I've heard stories. Not all of them true, I'm sure, but your name, it carries weight. I just wanted to ask, what was it like being the Reaper?" The Reaper leans back, the shadows accentuating the lines of a face carved by decades of combat. The room held its collective breath. Not a laugh, not a cough, not a sip of whiskey. Everyone knew history was about to speak. The Reaper's voice is low, deliberate, heavy with experience. Being the Reaper, it's not a choice. It's the consequence of survival, the price of knowing what others only fear. And every decision carries a mark on your soul. The seal listened intently, aware that he was witnessing a rare moment. The Reaper didn't need to embellish, didn't need to boast. His words alone painted a picture of missions that blurred the lines between legend and reality. Each sentence, precise and calculated, carried the weight of lives saved, risks taken, and enemies defeated. He spoke of nights when the world slept, but warriors moved unseen. He spoke of decisions made in seconds, where one mistake meant the end not just for him, but for others counting on him. And through it all, he survived. That was the mark of the Reaper. The seal's eyes never left the old man's. Every fiber of his training told him that this was a man who had done things no textbook could prepare him for. He realized respect wasn't given, it was earned, one impossible mission at a time. Camera pans, other patrons now watching discreetly, sensing the gravity of the encounter. Some have hands hovering over glasses, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Finally, the seal nodded, no words needed. In that gesture, a silent understanding passed between generations of warriors. He didn't need to ask for validation. The acknowledgement was already there. But the story was far from over. The Reaper's eyes, now glinting with a mixture of curiosity and caution, hinted that the night held more than lessons and respect. There were secrets, unspoken missions, and a reason why a Navy SEAL asking one simple question could stir the echoes of legends. Screen fades to black. Text appears. Next, you'll see the moment that changes everything, when history meets the present, and the bar learns why the Reaper earned his name.
The silence lingered, thicker than smoke. The seal had approached the Reaper, and for the first time he glimpsed the full weight of a living legend. But legends don't tell everything in the first words. They test, they observe, and they choose carefully who earns the truth. Camera pans to the Reaper's eyes, sharp and calculating. Tonight, the seal would learn that respect isn't enough. Courage alone doesn't unlock history. Sometimes you have to survive a test without knowing it's coming. The Reaper's gaze bore into the seal, assessing not his rank, but his character. The young warrior understood that this wasn't about stories or names. It was a measure of who he was. The Reaper leans forward, voice calm but commanding. "You've asked my name. That takes courage, but names alone mean nothing. Actions define you." The seal nodded, aware that he was stepping into a test as old as warfare itself. It wasn't about weapons or strategy. It was about instinct, judgment, and the unspoken code of warriors. Camera. Flashbacks, hints of the SEAL's own combat experiences, showing split-second decisions, leadership, and quick thinking under fire. The Reaper began to speak of missions that had never left the classified files, operations so dangerous that even the government wouldn't confirm them. And yet each tale was a lesson wrapped in consequence and respect. Scene cuts between the Reaper's story and visualized reenactments. Midnight extractions, tense infiltration missions, shadows moving through enemy territory. One mission in particular drew the SEAL's full attention. It was an extraction behind enemy lines, where every second counted. The Reaper's team had been pinned down, facing near impossible odds. Lives hung by a thread, and only one man could decide who lived and who didn't. Camera zooms on the Reaper's hands resting on the bar, calm yet deliberate. The SEAL could almost feel the tension, the fear, the responsibility. This wasn't storytelling, it was history speaking through experience, etched into flesh and memory. By now, the other patrons had stopped even pretending to ignore the corner table. Some gripped their glasses tightly, others leaned forward, drawn in by the invisible force of legend. Camera. The SEAL's face, eyes wide but respectful. He understood what it meant to stand in the presence of someone who had been tested in ways few could imagine. This was not a man of stories, this was a man of action. And in that silent acknowledgement, the SEAL felt both awe and humility. The Reaper's voice cut the tension like a blade. "Remember this: courage without control is reckless, power without wisdom is destructive, and respect must be earned. Every day, in every action." Just as the SEAL was processing the lessons, the atmosphere shifted. A group at the back of the bar, unaware of the Reaper's presence, made a careless joke, mocking the man in the corner. The room held its breath. Camera. The Reaper slowly turns his head, eyes narrowing. Patrons tense, sensing the impending storm. In an instant, the legend moved. Not violently, but with an authority that froze time. Words weren't needed. The silent warning was enough. Even the young SEAL, trained for combat in crisis, felt the undeniable force of presence. This was why they called him the Reaper. The bar went dead silent again. The joke had died in the air, replaced by respect and awe. The SEAL realized that some legends aren't measured by medals or fame. They are measured by the silence they command, the respect they earn, and the lives they touch without even trying. But tonight, the Reaper had one more lesson, and it would test everything that young SEAL thought he knew about courage. Screen fades to black. Text appears. Next, the final chapter, when legend meets action, and the SEAL discovers the truth behind the Reaper.
The Reaper had spoken. The SEAL had listened. But now, the test, the true measure of a warrior, was about to begin. Because some lessons aren't learned from words, they're learned from presence, decision, and action. Camera slowly pans across the seal's focused expression, then back to the Reaper, calm yet intimidating. The bar's quiet was broken, not by music, not by chatter, but by the subtle tension of expectation. The Reaper didn't need to raise his voice, his presence alone demanded attention. The seal realized this was no ordinary encounter, this was history in motion. The Reaper leans forward, voice low and deliberate. You've listened, you've respected, but respect alone isn't enough. Courage must be proven, even in the smallest way. The seal nodded, understanding. It wasn't about ego or recognition. It was about proving oneself in the presence of someone who had seen the edge of life and survived. A silent challenge passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. Camera close up on the seal's hands tightening slightly, ready for whatever comes next. Without warning, a commotion erupted at the back of the bar. A man, drunk and loud, began causing trouble, unaware of the authority in the room. Patrons froze. The seal's instincts kicked in, trained reflexes ready, but he realized something. This wasn't a fight about skill. It was a lesson in restraint, observation, and respect. The Reaper slowly rose from his seat, calm and deliberate. His gaze alone halts the troublemaker. The seal watched as the Reaper moved, not with aggression, but with precision. A single gesture, a calm word, and the man froze. The air shifted. The lesson was clear. Power without control is nothing. Courage without wisdom is dangerous. And history demands respect. Camera pans across the bar, patrons visibly stunned, whispering among themselves. The seal stepped back, allowing the lesson to unfold. He understood now that the Reaper's true power wasn't in combat alone, it was in presence, decision, and the quiet authority earned over decades of survival. The Reaper sits back down, his gaze softening slightly. You've seen enough tonight to understand. Not everything is about medals or stories. Some things are about how you carry yourself, how you face fear, and how you honor those who came before. For the first time, the seal felt a deep connection to a living legend. He had approached the Reaper seeking stories. Instead, he found wisdom, respect, and the kind of lesson that would stay with him forever. The bar slowly returned to life, but the energy had changed. Patrons spoke in hushed tones, aware that they had witnessed something extraordinary. A story that would ripple in silence, carried in the respect earned tonight. Camera, the seal nods to the Reaper, a silent promise of understanding and honor shared between them. The seal would leave that night changed, not because of weapons or battles, but because he had seen what true courage, wisdom, and respect look like, and he had learned the most important lesson of all. Some legends are alive, and they leave a mark that no story can erase. Screen fades to black, dramatic music swells. Text appears. The legend of the Reaper is real, and tonight, another warrior has carried it forward. Outro, voiceover, channel branding. This is United War. Remember, courage and respect are earned, not given. Subscribe for more incredible true stories of legends and warriors.